Hey guys, it's February 11th and I'm Kimberly Jolly, and today we're going to talk about our charity quilt. And today we are going to talk about block 1 in the Heartfelt charity quilt along. The quilt kits are now sold out, but we have yardage and pre-cuts online, and we'll put a little link to all the fabric requirements, and you can buy it by the piece and still get the fabric that you need. The fabric just arrived yesterday. Today what I'm going to focus on is starching, cutting, and we are going to make block 1. Now we have raised $56,682, so I'm so excited. That makes me so happy. And we have a lot of other free patterns that are going to go along with this, and I'm going to show that at the end. And I'm also going to show different block fabric options so that if you don't want to make it in Heartfelt, you can see how it's made in several different styles. But today I'm going to jump in. I do think this video will be pretty long, but I want to talk about kind of how I prepare for any type of quilt I'm doing. So the first thing is I starch. So I want to show you, this is the kit that I got, and I took pictures of all of my starched fabric. So the first picture, it took me 2 different days. The first picture is I put all of the smaller pieces on this little rack. And then the next photo, I put the larger, like half yards. And that took about a day. And what I do is I starch. And then we have lots of videos on how I starch. And then the last picture is I starched the full 5.5 yard piece in one. And so it is doable. What I did is just starched one side and then starched the other, and then I just laid it out so it could dry. And then so that took about 2 days to do the starching. So I am going to show you how I'm going to cut my borders first. But what I did after I starched is I put everything in the beautiful box. And here's my starch. This is the brand I use. And I will show you after I make a block how I put the fabrics back in and how I'm going to store all of my blocks. So I'm going to kind of jump right in. And one of the things that I do on all quilts is anytime there are big pieces on the border or sashing, we write the pattern to be with the fabric, meaning that you piece them together. But I don't like to piece them together. I prefer to use length of fabric. I like the stability that it adds to the end of the quilt because length of fabric does not stretch. So because I do that, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to take from your 5.5 yards that is starched, and you can tell it's starched, it's nice and stiff, how I cut my borders and sashing length of fabric. Now, this is not something you have to do. This is totally optional. If you're a beginner, I would just do the traditional width of fabric. And one of the questions I know that we get a lot is why don't we write our patterns length of fabric? And the reason why is a lot of people don't like it and they complain, and most people do not do the method I do. And I want to write things the way that most people do it. This is just my preference. And since I'm doing the video, I'm going to show you how to cut it up, but you can also do it this way. So if you're going to do length of fabric, you kind of have to do that at the beginning of your project. So anytime I'm working on a big quilt, the first thing I look at is inner border, outer border, what has to be pieced together at the end, and cut it up front. So from here, I'm going to need 4 2.5 by 76.5 inch strips, and then 4 4.5 by 76.5 inch strips, and that's going to be my sashing and my borders. So what I'm going to do is take my fabric, it's all starched, and I'm going to cut off about 80 inches first. So I've got a bunch of layers here. So I'm just going to use my mat, and I'm going to do 80 inches just so I have extra. So I'm going to do 30. So this is the 30. 60. And right here is 80. And I'm going to cut that. Now from here, this is left over. So I'm going to set this aside because that's what I'm going to be using next. So I'll fold it up real nice. So I'll just, yeah, fold it, set it aside. And we'll use this next. And I have everything nice and ironed. I'll have to go over it again in a second, but I'll just kind of move this out of the way. So from here, I'm going to put my fabrics together. And what is important when you do length of fabric is to have your selvages together. Have it nice and flat. Have your, just nice and flat. I'm going to fold it over to where it's about right here. So I've got this on this side, this on this side. Now what I need is I need this line right here to be parallel with this line, because when you unfold, it needs to be straight all the way across. You don't want to wave. So to do that, you put your ruler and you see if it lines up straight here, and if it lines up straight here, and it does. Now, if it was like this, you're going to have a wave. So you do need it to be, it's very important that this and this are straight, and they are perfectly straight. So what I'm going to do is cut off the edge. And then I'm going to rotate really nice and slow across. Now I need 4 4.5 and 4 2.5, and I don't subcut them down. So it says 76.5. I don't subcut them down. And there's 2 layers here, so 4.5. So I've got both of my outer borders done now, and I will show you how I attach them later, but I don't trim them down to 76.5. So those are going to be my A's. So what I do is I just put this. This is my A's. Now my B's, I need 4 2.5. So I'm going to cut at the 5.5 and then the 2.5. And these are my B's. Okay, so I have that cut, length of fabric, and this is going to go in my box. But I figured since I cut these, let me go ahead and cut the last piece that's in the finishing. And that is 25 2.5 by 12.5 inch strips. So from here, I'm just going to cut, I don't know how many I'll get. I'll probably have a lot of waste here. From here, I'm going to cut a 5-inch strip. I'm going to just start kind of to just do a clean. Let's see, 5. It's a little bit wavy. Let me see. Actually, I'm going to cut 12.5 here, and then I'm going to trim it down. So let's see. Then I'm going to subcut it down because it's a little wavy. It's not coming out exactly. And then we'll see how many we get. So that's 12 and a half. This is 5. And then 2 and a half. And these are the sashings that go between the blocks. So we'll see how many we get. And I usually at this point will put the fabrics right sides up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll have 16. And I'll need, I guess, 9 more. So I just put these right side up. And then this will be convenient so that if I want to, as I'm going, I can go ahead and add them based on the photo if I want to. And if you bought the kit, you got the full pattern up front. If you didn't buy the kit, that will be available later in the sew along. So these are C's. And then here, okay, these are going to be too small, so that's fine. I'll just set these aside. But I have enough to make 2 more here, or actually 4 more. So I'm going to iron this off to the side and just cut this into 4 if it'll fit. See, that's not going to fit because it's too wavy. Let me see. Actually, it'll work. So I'm using the, we'll see if it works. It might not. So if I do 5" here, 12 and a half. Oh yeah, it doesn't work. I don't have enough. So this will just be trash. This will go in my box right here. It'll just go in here like this, and we'll cut it up into something else later. But I still need 9 more. So from here, what I'm going to do is just chop off some pieces to cut from so that it's easy to manage because I've already cut my length. So this is what I do at home. I just chop off some pieces. I'll leave this big piece in my bucket. And then from here, I'll use this in a second. But we need, let's see, we need 9. Let's see, we need 9. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to cut a 12 and a half inch strip and then subcut it down. And then to do that, I'm going to join 2 rulers. So 6 and a half plus 6 is 12 and a half. So you can see 6 and a half plus 6. And if you're ever concerned, you can like put your finger here, go like this, and that is 12 and a half. And that's how you can use 2 rulers. And then I'm going to subcut this down into, I need 9 more, so I'll just cut 10. And then this makes it nice, so when you get to the end, you really don't have to worry about cutting. Because you've already cut the backing. Now right here, I didn't cut exactly right there, so I'm going to fix that. So I've got and it's always good, you know, when you're making a pattern, if you cut your biggest pieces first. That's kind of the way that I approach that. So I'll set these right side up. And that's kind of, you know, just something that I do by habit. Okay, so from here, I'm going to attach it to this, and then I'm going to put it in my box. So from here, I'll just put this right there, and that'll just stay because I put the Wonder Clips. Now these are probably too small of Wonder Clips, but that's just what I do. I mean, you could get the bigger ones, but that's just what I have. And then that is length of fabric borders. So I'm going to answer any questions that you have on it. So Kate, that's how I do length of fabric. We're getting questions about the backing. I'm going to do the backing in a whole separate other video. And so you can wait for that video, or you can just starch it all. So Carrie, when I was showing how the ruler, how it was parallel at the top and the bottom, that's what keeps it from having the V shape. And then if you have directional borders, you just have to either, you could do width of fabric and length of fabric. That's kind of totally, ours isn't directional, so we don't have to worry about that today. What surface do I starch on, especially the long yardage? So what I have is I have just a plain ironing board, like from Walmart or Target, and I cover it with like a leftover fabric or cheaper fabric, and just spray it so that it doesn't ruin the ironing board completely, and then I just put it in the on those pictures that I saw. Do I make myself a note that you have an extra? No. I'm not going to make a note on that. I'll just, when I get to the end, I'll just be like, oh, I have extra piece. Yeah, so it won't be a big deal. So now we're going to move, now that we've done length of fabric, we're going to move to block 1. And I'm keeping all my papers stapled together like it came in the kit so I don't lose them. And one of the best things about us at Fat Quarter Shop is we want you to always know how to cut your fabrics. So if you don't watch YouTube, you can follow this, and I've already kind of gone through this and I know exactly how to cut them. But basically we put the block number. And if there's not a block number, it says at the top, used in release 1, used in releases 5 and 6, 1 and 6. So this one's missing the number 1 on it. But this is just how you cut if you're not watching the video. So if you forget and you don't have the video at home, you can just cut this way. So we're going to follow background. So this is our background, and we need 23.5 by 6.5 and 23.5. So what I'm going to do is put 2 fabrics together, because this is leftover and this is leftover. I'm going to iron on the side and get it nice and flat. And we'll see, I need to cut, so this basically means I need to cut 2 6.5-inch strips and 2 3.5-inch strips, and then subcut. Now just remember, when you're at home, you do not have to cut the way I cut. I'm just showing you today kind of what I do, and you can go from there and figure out what works best for you. Now this, I can get the 6.5 from both. So I'm going to cut that, move it around, subcut it, and then that's 2 layers. So I have 2 6.5-inch strips. Then from here, I need to cut 2 3.5-inch. So I'm just going to cut those, and then we'll subcut in a second. And then as I have leftover fabric, I will just put it back in my box. But working with the smaller pieces of fabric makes it a little bit easier to manage, and hopefully we won't need these. So from here, I need 23.5-inch squares from this. So I'm just going to make it easy on myself and just use this little 3.5-inch square, so I don't have to think, and I won't make a mistake by looking at the ruler. So I need 20 of these. So that would be, there's 4 in the stack, so I need 5 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to save this, put it in my box. And on this, what I'm going to do, this is fabric B. I'm going to put all my fabrics right side up. It just saves me time when I get to my sewing table later. And then I won't make a mistake. I'm one of those people that I do sometimes put the wrong fabric on the front, and I don't like that. And then we're getting a question about, does it matter if you cut against the grain? I thought selvage was always horizontal. So today I'm just showing you what I do. I don't really pay attention to grain and all of that. I just cut the way I was taught. And then from here I need 23.5 inch. So from here I'm going to cut off, let's see, I prefer to cut off the edge that has the fold, just because that way, this fabric seems to have a deep selvage. Like the selvage comes up pretty high, so I don't want to accidentally have selvage in my pieces. And I love to cut, so let's see, so I need 5 of these again. So 1, and there are times when I cut these wrong, so eventually I'll cut something wrong on the camera. Okay, now I am going to keep this because I might need it later. So I'll just kind of put all these little pieces in my box, and I'll just fold them up like this, and if I need them, they're there. These are my A's, and again, same thing. Before I put them on my board, I'll put them face up. And then Cece is asking, if you have to wash fabric because it got dirty, should I still starch it? So it's up to you. I always starch. That's just my method. But not everybody starches. A lot of you guys don't, so don't feel like you have to. Why are those cutting instructions for each fat quarter not part of the free pattern? It's in the fabric requirement pattern. So if you go and find fabric requirements, which is free on our site, it is there. It's just on pages like 2, 3, 4, etc. I've ordered the background. If I start cutting the quilt and I don't know the sashing, I don't know if the sashing is length of fabric. So it's written as width of fabric, but I just showed you how you could cut it length of fabric if you want to. So this is my background. And then if you look here, we make it super easy. We try to letter and make it easy. So over here, C through E are these 5 fabrics. So what I'm going to do is grab my fabrics. And all 5 of these are, 4 of these are fat quarters and 1 is a 1/2 yard. So I'm going to take the 1/2 yard piece. I'm going to cut the top off because I don't want to cut through both layers. And I'm going to fold this up and then put it in my box. So it just goes right back in there how I have the others folded. So now I have this as 5 fat quarters, and I have layered all 5 together, and they're nice and ironed. And when I did that, I layered the cut edge on one side and the selvage on another, because I just want to make sure that if I'm cutting selvage, I have to cut wider than over here. So on here, I need 10 3.5 inch squares, 2 2.5, and 2 1 1/4. So what I'm going to do is, if you look over here, that means you need 2 strips and 1 strip, because I'm looking at my diagram used in release 1, which is why we have those here. So I'm going to cut just like that. And when I'm cutting, I'm gonna just kind of flip through, make sure I know where this is, and give a kind of a big cut here, and I'll show you. It's like a 1/4 inch. And what I'm doing here, when I cut this, I'm gonna go through and count 1, 2, and I really do this, guys, 3, 4, 5, and make sure that one of them isn't like accidentally cut off. I'm gonna cut 2 3.5 inch strips, and my cut is actually not very straight right there. So I'm gonna do another cut, which does happen. So I'm gonna cut twice at 3.5. So today I'm doing the cutting for all 5 blocks, but I'm only gonna piece one of them because I think if I pieced all of them, I would be here 8 hours. So 3.5. And then I'm gonna cut a 2.5 inch strip. Actually, you don't need the full 2.5, so 5. I'm gonna just cut a little 2.5 inch piece right here that's smaller, and then subcut it down instead of the full strip. But what I'm gonna do here, put it back in my box, but I'm not gonna just fold it and do this because it's gonna be hard to find your fabric later. So I'm gonna take the time to, well, that doesn't look very pretty. I'm gonna kind of do this so that if I need these fabrics, because I do know I need this one again. Some of them you don't need again. Some of them you do. And just keep it nice and just put it right in here, and I do keep my grays together, the 2 gray pieces. So from here I need 2 2.5 inch squares and 2 1.25 inch squares. So from here you can do this, and you could either do this or the big ruler, either one. Sometimes I just use the small square rulers just to make it so I don't make a mistake. So these are going to be my E's, and then from here I need these to be 1.25. So I'll do 1.25, throw this away. 1.25 plus 1.25 is 2.5. So I'll cut 2.5, then 1.25. These are my E's. Now I need to go back here, and these need to be 5.5 inches, 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to use my 3.5 inch square ruler to make it easy so I don't make a mistake. And I'm doing that, I'm on camera, so I'm more likely to make a mistake. So I'm just trying to make it where I don't make mistakes. So I need 10 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then this you can either keep or save in your box. You could cut like 1.5 inch squares from it. So I'll put those over there for now. And so if you cut from the salvage edge, you can flip through to make sure you don't have any salvages showing. So let's see. So, and remember, this is all to benefit Make-A-Wish. It's all completely free. We just asked for a donation to Make-A-Wish. And we have our donation link in the description box. Okay. We're halfway done cutting. What I'm going to do here is I don't just put them on the board and label them, because I want all my fabrics together. So what I'm going to do is put them together because it's so much easier than doing it when you get there later. So I'm just going to stack them up. I'll answer any questions or anything while I'm doing this. Valeria Bauer, thank you so much for everything you teach me. Well, thank you for watching. I still sometimes can't believe that you guys watch me. And I do want to remind everybody, you don't have to do it the way I do it. I just want to show you guys what I do and hope that you guys like what I do. Leslie Quilt says, Kimberly, so glad you're back and love that you're cutting and sewing today. You're the best. Thank you. And then Cindy says, have a fantastic day. Thank you for this cutting lesson. We love it. Yeah, and after, if you're not watching live, you can always put questions and we will try to answer them. I do try to be as thorough as possible. And I do try to explain why I do certain things, just so you kind of know my reasoning. And I'm keeping all of my fabric stored in the box, just like I'm showing you. And when I end today, I'll show you everything in the box all at once. And if you're not using the box, you can always just put it in like a bucket or something. So from here, I'm going to put my C's like this. And I'll do the same thing for my D's. Except I'll probably put them over here. Can Kimberly talk about flying geese papers and cutting for those? So I'm not going to do that in this video just because I want to keep it focused on the charity and how we wrote it. But there are instructions on that paper that you can definitely use. And this will make it easy when I get home tonight because I have to finish these. So it'll make it easy. I have everything cut. I do love to cut. It's my favorite part of the process. And I think the reason, oh, okay, this, I don't like this. No, I'm not using this. This is all white. I do not like this because it's gonna look ugly on my block. So what I'm gonna do, this is 1 1/4. I got my little fabrics over here. I'm gonna cut a 1 1/4, but I'm gonna cut it where there's not a bunch of white in it because I don't want it to get lost. Like that might get lost too. So I'm gonna cut it like right here. And I'm gonna recut the greens. Otherwise, your piece isn't gonna show up. And that's why we always give a lot of extra in the kit. So these two look better than these two. So keep them in the order. So those are E's, and now we have to cut F's. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my F stacks. This one's more complicated. So this one's a lot more complicated. There's 2 fat eighths, 1 fat quarter, 2 half yards. So I'm gonna simplify it for you. I'm gonna cut off the edge of the half yards, the fold of the half yards. And I'm going to pull out the half because I don't need that. And let's see, this one's hard to tell which side is right side up. And these I'm gonna fold, put them back in my box. And that way I can keep everything together. Now, if you don't have a box, it's not a big deal. I do, when I'm sewing at home, keep everything in little containers, and I just get the containers at Target. Now, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna get all my fabrics right side up and aligned on this side. So I have this, 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 and then I'm gonna make the other 2 right side up. And this one, luckily, the selvage is face up, so I can tell that that is the right side up. And once I have it all nice and flat, I'm gonna get it nice and flat with my iron. And my project board that I'm putting it on right now is 18, but I'm gonna store my blocks on a 14 inch. So I'll show that towards the end. So here I just need two 3.5 by 6.5 inch rectangles. So you can cut, let's see, it shows just cutting it right here, cutting it 3.5 wide and 6.5 inch tall. I'm not going to do the full cut though, because I think that's kind of not needed. So 6.5 plus 6.5 is 13. So this is not going to work. So here I'm going to look at 13 right here. And I'm just going to cut to where I can get that out of this piece right here. You can cut the full length if you want. I just don't want to. So then I'm going to rotate. And also when you starch, when I'm rotating my fabrics, you will notice they stay together better. If you don't starch, your fabrics are more likely to move. And then here you need 6.5, and this ruler is 6.5 inch wide. So 6.5. 6.5. And then from here, I'm going to take the time to stop, put everything in my box. So I've got these that I'm going to put in here. And I'm just going to fold these up and put them in there. And I'm going to put the other fabrics that are left over with this together with this one. And this also makes it nice, so when you're done with the project, you can get the most amount of cuts from it. So I'll put this down here. And I'm just folding these up into little, just however you like to fold, it's not a big deal. This is just how I fold mine. So I'm going to keep that together with that. And taking the time to do this now, it just kind of keeps everything nice and organized rather than just like throwing it in a box. And then this one, I'm going to put with this piece. So these two go together. And then these two. So everything's in my box except my background. And here's my little background. It fits. If you want to, you can keep these little small pieces. I'll just put those on the top. Close it back up, and then when I'm done, I will put my pattern back in the box also. But that's how my box looks, totally repacked. So from here, these are my F's. But again, I'm going to put all my fabrics right sides up, sorry. And that's going to really help because of that white on white print, so I don't accidentally put it the wrong direction, because that is, I don't have the best lighting in my room, so it helps me not make a mistake. So that's how it looks on the board. And if you get tired at this point, then you can take a break and just come back and piece later, because sometimes, you know, doing a lot all at once can become overwhelming. But I'm going to go ahead and sew. But I'm going to take a little tiny break, and we'll be right back in like 2 seconds. I'm going to just take a little break, and then we're going to come back and piece the block, and you guys can chat and let me know what questions you have. I have just turned the page to page 2 of release 1, and we're going to just tackle the block or piece by piece, but we do want to mention that the arrows, you want to press according to the arrows so that your seams nest. You could also press open if you would like. So I'm going to just make the first block. So the first block is this fabric right here. And the center is the white. So I'm going to be using these fabrics. I'm going to pull all the fabrics out I'm using. And I'm going to leave my letters over here because I already know what letters I'm using. I can just refer to the board. So I'm going to go block by block. So I think these are the correct fabrics for the block that we're working on. And I can just kind of look over here and know what fabric is what. But what I wanted to show you today is Doug Lico has a ruler that is useful for doing a lot of corner squares, flying geese, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways you can use it, or you can do the traditional method. So our first step is to take a fabric A and fabric C, and we're going to do a flying geese out of this. So we can do two things. I'm going to show you a bunch of ways to do this. The first thing you can do is just draw a line from corner to corner, and we're going to make 4 of these, so I'm going to do it 4 different ways. So this ruler's too small to do the line, so this one's not going to work. This is the mini simple folded corners ruler, and then there's a bigger one. So you can use this ruler to draw the line from corner to corner. Like this. Or you can just use a regular ruler. And you can either pin it. That'll be my method 1. I'm going to show you 4 different ways to do it. So you can put a little pin. Well, I'll actually put 2. So that's one way you can do it. Another way you can do is and you want to pay attention to the lines on his rulers. And I know y'all are about to tell me this is not how he uses the ruler, and I know. I'm going to show you how he uses it in a second. I'm going to use some glue. And this is the method right here that I'm going to do at home right now. I can tell you already, this is what I'm going to do. Because I'm going to draw the line on all of them and do all my flying geese at one time. So that's the second method. The third method, I'm going to have to come up with a 4th method. The third method is to put your square on there. You need to be a 1/4 inch away, so okay, we're going to zoom in. So you have your line right here. It's a 1/4 inch away. This is your 1/4 inch. You cut, and you can use a 1/4 inch line to stitch on. And you don't have to draw a line. So that's the third method you can do. And I would do whatever method comes out the best for you. The 4th one, I'm going to combine Doug's methods and do kind of my own method. I'm going to draw the line and cut. I'm going to do both. So there are so many ways. Okay, this isn't on there exact. It needs to be on there exact. So when you're working with this, you want to make sure everything is exact, so you don't see your white above your gray, etc. And you want to make sure you're not like way over here either. And also when you starch, it kind of helps keep your people together. Or your fabrics together, your fabrics together. And then from there, I'm going to pin. So there's lots of ways you can use Doug's rulers with this, or you can just use your Creative Grids rulers. Either way. And then I am going to put the lid back on the glue. I'm going to use it again in a second, but I do keep the lid on it when I'm not using it. Now, if you look at your pattern, we need to make 4 of these. So I'm going to make all 4 real quick. We're going to look at the regular we're going to look at the sewing camera. And I have this open toe foot, and that will work on this piece that has the lines. So I'm just going to sew directly on the line, and I am using Heartfelt color 2000. My stitch length is like a 1.5. So that was the flying geese with the glue. This is the flying geese with the pins. And you'll notice I put my pins where when I'm sewing I don't hit them. And then this one, there's a line, so I'm going to follow that. Do we have that first item? And this one I'm just sewing on the line. And then this one we'll need to use a 1/4 inch foot because I don't have the line. So I'm going to put the 1/4 inch foot, and then I'm just going to sew. Okay, and we do have a question if I ever use diagonal seam tape, and I do use it sometimes, but on something this big, I wouldn't use it because it's just too long of a seam. So these 2 are already cut. These 2 need to be cut. So you can either just cut using a regular ruler or Doug's ruler. I'm just going to use a regular ruler. And these you don't need for anything else. So you can throw them away, or you can keep them and cut squares or make half square triangles out of them. Up to you. So from here, we need to press, and we're going to press towards, let's see, actually, we're going to press towards the white on this side. And someone's asking about the diagrams. All the diagrams are listed with SKUs, and so you just follow SKU by SKU. And I just combined mine all into one step. And you notice what I'm doing here is I'm setting my seam nice and flat, and I'm going to press towards the white. And this is not looking, this one is like, okay, that's better. These are not lying very flat for me, actually, so I'm probably going to press these open because it's going to drive me crazy. So it looks like the best result I got was the one that I do with the glue. So this is the one with the glue and traditional. This is the one with the glue, with the pins and traditional. And then these 2 are the Doug's. So kind of just depends. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to press open because this iron for some reason is not getting this flat, and I don't like to have a Doug pleat. And I want that nice and flat. Because it's like, it's just not laying all the way flat. And we have reached a milestone on our fundraising, so we do have an extra pattern, so you can look for that. On our website, it's completely free. It's called Hearts of Fluttered Table Runner. It uses this block, and it's a table runner. So you can check that. We'll show it at the end of the show also. So from here, I've got this. And you can see this did not come out good. That is not good right there. That is not good. Because this should be perfect. This is how it should look. Let's see this one. And the reason it looks the best is because that's what I'm used to doing. So if you use the other method, you'll eventually get it correct. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the method I usually do so that mine start looking better. And you'll get the rhythm of it once you do it. Whichever method you like. Everyone's a little bit different. And I do like this method also because I can have my kids draw the lines. So it saves me about, I don't know, 5 minutes. And this is going to go this way so that if you're ever new and you're concerned about if you have it the right way, you can just fold it back and you'll know you have it the right way. So I'm going to glue these down. Now, if you glue, you won't be able to use those leftovers as half square triangles like I had mentioned. Or I guess you wouldn't be able to use them as scraps either. But most people don't glue. This is just something new that I started and I love it. So I'm lining up all 3 sides. Now this one, if I was at home, I'd just redo this because this looks really bad. Like right there, look at that, that looks really bad. So I'm gonna pull that and iron it some more. I would redo this if I was at home, but I don't, let's see. But I'm gonna show you how to make it work. So now we're just going to sew on those lines. I can kind of line them up so it's easy to sew. Now when you're sewing, you can either start here or here. If you're a beginner, it's probably easier to start here, so it's easier for the machine to catch. So either way. I'm going to go ahead and put the open toe foot back on. And chain piece these together. Okay, so now I'm going to just cut these apart, trim them, iron them. And now when you're working with flying geese, there are lots of methods you can use. You can use our triangle, you can use our foundation paper, you can use the Eleanor Burns method, or you can use the traditional method. We wrote the pattern using the traditional method because this is a charity quilt along, and we would rather you spend the money on the charity than that extra notion. And then here, this one you press towards the outside, but I'm going to go ahead and press open just because I think it'll look better. because today my ironing is not. So some days my ironing comes out great and some days it just doesn't. How long does one bottle of glue last? Oh, I've been using it about 4 or 5 months, 6 months, and I haven't run out yet. When I starched my fabric, it looked grainy when I pressed it very well. Do you have any idea? I wouldn't use that starch. I don't know, maybe you might have used too much. I'm not sure. And then thank you to Betty Williams. She says, Kimberly, you're the best. Thank you for showing us what you do. Well, thank you for watching. I still can't believe that people watch me. Now here, because I pressed open, I will use a clapper to make that lay down. And this is just a little wood piece, and that heat, it only will work if you still have heat on your block. So these are my flying geese, super easy. And I hope you, and then I'm going to put this, and I hope you liked me showing you just different ways you can use different things, because you can use lots of different methods. Now our next step is to work with fabric Fs, and what I want to remind you here is to follow your diagrams here so you know which fabric C and E goes with which fabric F. So you could kind of put them all together, but I'm only working on this one, and so this is the first one and this is the first one. Now I do know that on my D, E, and Fs, all of these need lines on them, on the wrong side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to leave my clapper on the side on those blocks so that they will be nice and flat when we come back. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw all my lines to save time. And then this is where, like, if you have kids or grandkids, you can just like, hey, draw the lines. Because I will make my kids draw the lines. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do 2 steps in one. So this is step 1. This is the left side of the heart right here. And this is the right side of the heart. So I'm going to go ahead and put my C's on the bottom. They go here. I'm going to kind of lay them out because your heart is going to form like this. Double check my pattern. And you'll see that's how the heart forms at the bottom. I'm going to glue those down. And I guess you could press once you do that, but then your your marks from your friction pen are going to go away. So I probably wouldn't do that. So those are the bottom. And then the top left, you're going to put the bigger piece here. And then we're going to come back later and add that last piece that goes here. And the reason we need to press these first, but I'm going to do 2 steps in one, or actually 4 steps in one, to save time. And before I start any pattern, I do what I did this morning, which is I sit down and I really just read the pattern, look at it, make sure it is that I understand it before I just jump in. So now I'm going to just stitch with the open toe foot just straight on that line. Some people will stitch slightly to the right of the line, but I don't. then I'm going to trim a 1/4 inch away. Now when I'm at home, I am going to do all my flying geese at one time, and then all my hearts at one time, and then assemble all my blocks at one time. So thanks for asking that, Jorana. And then, do I ever use the Creative Grids Ultimate Flying Geese tool? Yes, and it works great. So like I said, there's all kinds of methods. So here, this is how it looks. These are going to press towards the gray, and then this one, you're going to press towards the gray and towards the white so that your seams nest. Or press open. I'm just going to press open. I don't know, lately I have just been kind of pressing open. Let's see, when you press open, do you make your stitches shorter? Yes, you should, but I already stitch with such a low stitch that it doesn't matter because I stitch with like a 1.5. And a 2.0 stitch length is okay. That's what I used to use, but because I press open, now, that's all personal preference. And you know, also like a Janome will give you a different 2.0 stitch length than a Bernina or a Juki. It shouldn't, but it does. So I think every machine is different and everybody's preference is different. Now the 1.5 stitch length, I will say, makes it real hard to get your stitches out. So that's the you don't want that. Okay, this is, that needs, okay, so see how that's wrinkly? That is gonna show on the front, so I have to fix it. And I don't square up my flying geese. I only do that if I'm using the Creative Grids or Eleanor Burns method. And if I'm using my foundation paper, I don't have to because it's already squared up for you. So there's all kinds of ways to make half square triangles and flying geese, and I just try to show you different things. I mean, I've each time. So I'm going to put this back. This is the left side of the heart and this is the right. And it's going to look like this. And I will say I use a little bit too much glue on this. You should use a little bit less. Let's see. But I haven't ran out at work or at home, so. Okay, so now everything from now on is going to be 1/4 inch foot. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my 1/4 inch foot. And then I'm going to trim and press. So on this, you can just press them open or opposing ways. So you can press one to the gray and one to the white, or you can press open. Today, I guess I'm just in the mood to press open. Different days, different moods. And also this is beginner, and we wrote it for beginners, so, but I want my block to come out nice and flat, so I'm gonna press open. Now pressing open does add time to your project, so also depends on how much time you have. I don't use leaders and enders, but when I didn't use the Juki, I did use leaders and enders. Now, Doug Lico always uses leaders and enders. And Lori, what she does instead of doing leaders and enders is she just has random strips around to sew together that she'll eventually put into a quilt. So I need to sew this together. So I'm going to do this, right sides together, and here I am going to pin. So I'm going to put these right where the white and the white touch and the gray touch. Pin right there. Do the same thing here. And then I'll put one pin here and then just 1/4 inch seam. So just 1/4 inch seam. Now before I iron, I'm going to look to see if they match. The top one does, the bottom one does not. So we're going to zoom in so you can see why I think it doesn't. It's about 1/16 of an inch too low on the left. Now most people would just leave that. But I am Kimberly Jolly and I am not leaving that, so I have to find my seam ripper. Of course, who knows where I put it. So we're going to find the seam ripper. I don't know where it is. Oh, there's one right there. Thanks. Okay, we found it. So to rip out my seam, I'm going to just clip every couple of stitches. And you can see it's hard to get the stitches out because they're 1.5. So it should not be this hard, but there we go. Then I'll go to the other side and just kind of pull and see if they come out. Hopefully it does, yeah. And I do get all of my little stragglers out because if I don't, then I'm going to sew over them. So here, this is kind of in the way, this little piece right there. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to line it up again. Pin and try again. Now I sewed over previous stitches so that I don't leave a gap or anything. Ta-da! It worked. Perfect. So that's kind of one of those things in your sewing room. Decide how much, you know, how perfect you want to be. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you what you want. The different feet that I'm using on my machine, one is an open toe foot that works great for flying geese and corner square triangles. The 1/4 inch foot is what I use to put the block together. And you can also use diagonal seam tape if you don't want to do that method. I kind of like the old school method. Smaller stitches are better for keeping your quilt together if you're pressing open. And oh, we have some super chats. So thank you to Donna Price. Thank you to Lisa Marksberry. And thank you to Ann Boswell. So now I can take these clappers off. And we're ready to build our block. So I'm going to get another design board. Maybe that pink one. And then I'm going to build my block on the design board. I use these design boards for everything. Like I can't even live without them at this point. And so like I said, I'm going to show what I will do at home. So when I'm at home, I'm going to do all flying geese together at one time. I'm going to do all the hearts together at one time. And when I get to the last step, I'm going to have 5 separate design boards and stack them up so that I don't get them confused. But I will say right now when I'm looking at this, I see a duck pleat. So I'm going to let Jordan zoom way into that duck pleat because these drive me nuts. So you can see my white is over my gray, and look, my scissor blade goes under it. No. So look at that. That is like my #1 pet peeve. So look, you can see it. I'm gonna fix that. So I'm gonna fix it by ironing on the top and just getting it nice and flat. And I'm almost like ashamed that I have a duck pleat because that's just like my biggest. Okay, so I can still see that little crease, so I'm gonna iron it a little more. Okay. So now I'm going to just sew this. I'm gonna sew this to this, this to this, this to this. So to do that, I'm gonna put them right sides together and pin everything on the board before I go to my sewing machine. Okay, so what's causing that duck pleat right there is, see that? That's like also needs to be fixed. So that'll look better. And I do prefer to pin. Now this one, we're gonna have 2 seams that meet up. 1 seam that meets up, 1 that does not. So the one that does not is obviously right here. But this one does need to meet up. So I'm gonna first, because it's wide, I'm gonna pin once at the beginning, once at the end, and then once right here, because this doesn't matter where it lines up. But here, I need that to line up, so I'm going to make sure it does. And we're going to hope that lines up when we sew it. Sorry, my stomach's growling. Okay. So then I'll have this on my sewing table and I'll just sew straight down. I will chain piece them together and not cut apart until I'm done. And I just go step by step. And I try to pull the pins out right before I get to them. Okay, and then right here, I sewed a little crooked, so I'm gonna fix that. Okay, so then I go back to my design board. Just like they were, cut them apart, and let's see if the seam met. Okay, so we're going to zoom in and look at how it does not match. But it actually looks fine. But I'm a little bit, I need to stitch like a 1/16 of an inch more, like that. So I'm going to do that real quick. Ooh, perfect. And my last step is to add these and then the rows. So make sure you ask any questions because we're almost done. At the end, I am going to show the cross stitch, and I'm going to show where I'm at on the cross stitch. I'm also going to show this done in other fabrics and our freebie. And just make sure, if you have not donated to Make-A-Wish, to donate today. And I'm going to pin this one the same way. And this block is called Beloved. Sorry, I'm throwing those to the side. I'll get them. Let's see. So you can see it's a little bit off. okay. Yeah, I'm going to show the cross stitch and show you what you can work on, and that's also free. So if you stitch that, it would be great to donate twice to make a wish. Okay, so right here you can see those little tails that are coming out. Chop those off so they don't get in your way when you're sewing. Sorry, that iron is saying hello. That iron does that sometimes, so just ignore it, sorry. It's saying you need to hurry up. People are gonna stop watching. Okay. So as I get to that pin, I pull it out. I try not to stitch over my pins. I try. Okay. Ooh, that matches. Yay! Okay, so now I am going to press towards the bee, towards the heart, here. You could also press open, but at the end I kind of don't. So set my seam, press to the side, set my seam, press to the side, and with that seam that I had to adjust, if I was going to press open, I would need to pull out my previous stitches or it's going to look funny on the back. So I'll do these two first. Then I'm going to set my seams here. And so right here, when I have this lower piece that's stitched, we're going to zoom in a little bit. If I was going to press open, I would have to pull these stitches out or it would not lay correctly. It would lay bumpy on the back. So those little extra ones would have to be pulled out, which I don't want to do. And I think the beauty of quilting is to use, there's so many methods, there's so many ways to do things. Do whatever you like the best. Okay. So we want to make sure we don't do that, because that would be something I would do at home. And that's why I have the design boards, because I take it from my sewing machine table to the ironing table and put it back on and then go back. And it also makes it good. I'm very busy, so using the design boards is great because sometimes I have to leave and come back and start a project the next day or the next week. And if it's on a design board, I know where I'm at. So here I'm going to nest my seams. Pin there. I'm going to pin both sides, sew both sides. How do the sweet snips compare with the Omni Grid scissors? Okay, so I think they're both great. And the reason we made the sweet snips is we wanted a cheaper alternative because we got a lot of complaints about how expensive the Omni Grids are. And actually I use both now equally. So I have a bunch of blue ones, a bunch of yellow ones. But okay, here. Now this is supposed to meet this little thing and this little thing. Now, in the end, does it really matter? No, but I'm still going to make it meet. And I'm going to do that by doing that. Now, I could have just met it up, too. I mean, you could just meet it up. And then I'll put this one right sides together. And I'm going to look on the donation page real quick to see if we have gone up from 56,000, just to see if we've got any donations, because that is what today is all about, is to celebrate Make-A-Wish. And we're at 57,322, so we are almost, and now when we get to 60,000, we have a second bonus quilt. And that will be shown and will be free whenever we hit that milestone. And I will be doing these videos once a month. Okay, see that right there? I gotta fix that. That has got to be pressed open. If I leave that like that on the front, there will be a bump. So I'm gonna take my iron and flatten that. So I'm gonna be doing these videos on Fridays once a month through June. And all of the questions you guys have can be answered. Okay, these two need to meet. Okay, so I'm going to poke a pin, and that means I'm going to poke the pin through this tip, this point, and that point. And so I came up with this years ago. So I just put this pin in the point, make sure it's on the point right there, put it in this point, make it just sit right there, and then pin to the left and the right of that. So that's something I came up with years ago. Yes, I have taken the sweet snips on a plane, and I have also taken OmniGrid on the plane. And I do think this is a beginner pattern. This is a very easy, and it has lots of big pieces. And I do want to mention the quilt finishes at 76 by 84, and Corey Yoder designed it, and the fabric collection is A Beautiful Day, and Corey also designed that. Okay, so before I take the sewing machine away and before I press, I need to check my seams, and I already see one is off. So this matches, and this matches. This matches, and this does not. But it doesn't have to, because it's just creating a square. It just creates a square somewhere else. So I could leave that. I'm going to take it out, but I mean, you wouldn't see that. But I'm going to just take it out. Anyway, just because if I don't take it out now, I'll take it out at home. And you guys can comment and let me know what collection you're using. Now, this is perfect timing because Heartfelt just arrived. So if you missed out on the kit, you can order everything by the yard looking at our fabric requirement page. And we will leave these patterns free on our site through the event. And we have lots of other charity quilts that are available free on our site, free patterns that you could also use and still donate to Make-A-Wish. So let's see. I'm going to repin it. Ow. And then just stitch again. It's better, it's not perfect, but I'm gonna leave it. Okay. So now I'm gonna move the sewing machine and I'm going to press my block. And now here, if you just start pressing, it's gonna look crazy. So you really need to set your seam. Make it nice and flat. That locks in the stitches really nice before you press. then I'm going to press towards this outside. Okay, so I'm just going to do an all over press, and I am going to trim up the outside edges. So I'm going to just put a ruler on here, and that looks, I don't want it to be crooked, so I'm going to trim all 4 sides. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how you can package everything and how I'm going to be doing it. But I'm also going to show you another thing. So I'm going to take this home today, and what I'm going to do is put another design board on top of it so that when I get home all my alphabetties are still here. So this is going to go home like this, and what I'll do is I'll take another one with the cotton side, put them together, and then rubber band it together, and having the batting to batting will keep it together. In fact, see, some of it already went to this batting, which is fine. So I'm going to take it home just like this. I'm going to take my kit box just like it is, and then I'm going to show you one other thing before I end. Well, a couple other things, but from this pattern, if you bought the finishing kit, you can actually look and see this is block 1, block 1, block 1, block 1, and block 1. No. 1, 2, 3. Let me see. So I would, at this point, circle which ones are block 1. So this is block 1. The gray. Okay, so we've got gray. The next one is a dark, so it's this one. Nope. They all have a white center, so this one. Pink, this one. Green, this one, and the red, this one. And I'll label them 1. And this is just what I do, guys. You don't have to do this. This is me getting ahead of myself. And I am going to double check my work just to make sure I've marked the right ones. But you can see on the bottom of row 1, I can take that fabric C and add it to the bottom. This one I can't because it's at the bottom of a row. So these 3, I would just be building it top down. So I would add the fabric C to this one, and this one tonight. And then these I wouldn't. Or you could wait to the end just to be safe. But that's just a way you can kind of get ahead. But I am going to take my box, and let's see, what I'll do is in here, this is our Heartfelt bag. And these are our 14-inch design boards by Lori Holt. And I am going to keep my pattern in here. And I just kind of go like this, but I just curve it. Put this in here, and I'll put this one on top, like this, in my bag, and then I'll be ready to finish. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. I am going to show some more blocks and another freebie. Now what I will do on here is once I'm done with all 5 blocks, I will mark it off as done. And that's kind of how I keep track of my projects in my quilting. The rubber bands I use are from Container Store, and Lori Holt told me about them. Okay, now I'm going to show you Sample Makers blocks. The first ones are from Carrie. This is the Seashore Drive collection by Sherry and Chelsea from Moda Fabrics. She hand stitched accents on the edge of the flying geese. Sorry, I have the hearts going the wrong way. And she made those stitches using DMC 581 2 strands, and they're about a 1/4 inch wide. So that's something fun you can do. So again, this is Seashore Drive by Sherry and Chelsea, and she has the different fabrics she has picked. So that's the first set of Sample Maker blocks. The second Sample Maker blocks are by Elva, so if you've ever called Fat Quarter Shop, you might have talked to her. This collection is also by Moda. It's called Flirt, and the designer is Sweetwater. I love this print. So that is a look you could do. Now I will say that Lisa Bonjean is also making hers in this collection. She has sized it down to 6-inch blocks, and she's going to be auctioning off hers at the end. We're going to auction 4 quilts, one by Corey Yoder, one by Lisa Bonjean in this fabric, but it's half the size, one by Pat Sloan using her fabric, and then mine. The third set of blocks is by Lori. She also works in customer service. This is Bonjour de Jour by French General. I'm trying to keep all the hearts going up. And this one has a lot of great reds. I will say the best thing about French General is all of their stuff, it blends really well. So if you mix them, you can have a choice of a lot of reds. And that is also by Moda Fabrics. The next blocks are by Riley. The collection is One Fine Day by Bonnie and Camille. And I love these. And she does have some darker center hearts, so you can do a lot with the hearts. And then I want to show one thing. When you're working with a fabric like this, which is a diagonal, you can see it looks great even if the diagonals don't all go together. So you don't have to consider this background directional. You can or you cannot. It's up to you. But if you do consider it directional, you would have to cut your fabrics differently than I showed you. But she cut it just like I did, and that's how she has them all looking different, which in the end is going to look great once she puts it all together. And I love this. Love this collection. And then our last one is by Deborah. She also works in customer service, and she used Love Note by Layla Boutique and Moda Fabrics, and I also love this collection. And she used a lot of variety of colors, which looks really good. And you could also make this quilt from scraps. You can do whatever floats your boat on this. We just want to raise money for Make-A-Wish. So those are basically 6 different ones to look at. Mine plus 5 more. And of course, you can follow us on social media and see what other people are posting. And then here is a bonus project. So first I'm going to show you on the front camera, just so you can kind of see the width. Sorry, can't see. Okay, there it is. Okay, so, okay. So what I want to show you is we always want to raise money for Make-A-Wish, and we found years ago when we first started that our donations would go down. And so we set different milestones so that we can keep raising money, and we're doing different bonus patterns. So once we hit 40,000, we release this pattern. Now, once we release 60,000, we'll release the next one. So this one is completely free, and what it is the full block and then the half block combined. And you can find this free at fatquartershop.com. And I believe Gina Tell of Thread Graffiti quilted it. Or Nova quilted it herself. Oh, okay, Nova quilted it herself. I love it. I love the little crosshatch. And then she put NB for Nova and her last name. Oh, it's a little kitty cat. And then it says January 2022 and a little sewing machine. So we'll zoom in so you can see that. This is cute. She must have a fancy sewing machine. And this must be a label that came with the collection. So you can get really creative. And then I just want you to see the quilting up close. It looks really nice. And she spaced it about 1/2 inch apart, I think. Let me look. One inch apart. So these are all 1 inch apart and looks great. And then she did machine binding. So, and then I'm going to show you the cross stitch. I'm going to pull the cross stitch. So like I was saying, you know, we continually want to raise money for Make-A-Wish. This is all about Make-A-Wish and nothing else. So we keep our focus on Make-A-Wish. And like I said, when we raised money, we found years ago that people would just donate, and then we just, like, everything would drop off, and we just weren't making enough money, and we really wanted other ways. So in addition to doing the additional projects, now we added cross stitch. So that's a whole nother customer base to donate. And this is completely free also. And we have released the outside border, which is part 1. And then next month we'll release part 2, March, April, May, June, July. And if you look at the quilt, it's behind me, but if you look at it and then you look at the cross stitch again, you will see that we replicated Corey Yoder's design and put it in here. So not only do we have quilting, a full quilt, bonus patterns for quilting, and cross stitch, we have this. And if you don't know about our cross stitch, we do have a cross stitch channel called Fat Quarter Shop Floss Tube that we would love for you to watch. And I will be back next week, and I'll be showing new blocks. And then I'm going to answer the last couple of questions that have come in. And of course, if you're watching later, just pop your question in and we will answer it. Oh, would this be a good quilt to start with? I think this one would be perfect to start with because we use a lot of 3.5 inch wide pieces. I think it'd be perfect. And in my Juki, I use Schmetz 80/12 Universal. That's what I use. How do I keep an accurate 1/4 inch seam going as fast as you do? Because when I go fast, it seems to go wonky on me. I have been sewing for so long that I actually, if I sew slower, I make more mistakes. So I think it's also kind of like when we talked about picking your different fabrics or picking your different flying geese method or different half square triangle, whatever works for you. Because I will say that when I'm at home sewing super fast, I sew way more accurately than I do, obviously standing up, but the slower I go, the worse I do. So I'm actually opposite of you. I want to wish all of you guys a great weekend. Thank you again for watching, and make sure to donate to Make-A-Wish, and I'll see you next Friday.